So, in case you didn't hear, Calgary's in the midst of a bit of a water crisis.
Our experts say this is the most dramatic and traumatic break of the feeder main they have ever seen. This pipe is only at the halfway point in its life cycle. From all accounts, this should not have happened, but it did. We need to double down and get this job done.
The city declared a local state of emergency. The mayor says it's to prepare for any eventualities, including allowing the city to go on private property to complete repairs if needed. So things are going to be like this for a while. And what I'm curious about, and other people seem curious about too, is what is with this feeder main pipe? How could such a critical piece of infrastructure just fail out of the blue? The city is calling in outside experts to see what happened.
I know you want to understand what happened to this pipe in the first place, and I do too. It's for that reason that I called for a third party to do a complete incident review of this situation.
The scope of this review will include, but not be limited to, understanding the factors that contributed to the original pipe failure, understanding of our current practices for inspection and asset sustainability, and it will include recommendations for specific actions to improve water supply resilience moving forward.
There's some things we know already. This feeder main experienced a catastrophic break. Catastrophic, like 1 minute everything's fine and then the next. The city didn't see this coming, or more accurately, they didn't hear it. Officials say they were using what's called acoustic monitoring. This is technology installed to listen to the pipe and analyze sounds to see if something could be wrong. One of the things the city would be listening for is the sound of snapping wires.
So a visual inspection of the pipe would have provided indication of the condition of the pipe, including potentially whether or not some of those wires would have snapped. The acoustic monitoring can also tell you whether or not the wires are snapping because you can hear them. Our acoustic monitoring didn't pick up wire snaps that would indicate that we were leading towards a catastrophic failure.
So what do we know about this feeder main? It's a specific type of pipe. It's called a pre-stressed concrete cylinder pipe. And if you look at the pictures the city provided when they uncovered the pipe, you can see all of these wires hanging off of it. These wires actually wrap around the pipe. They're part of it, and they act kind of like a tensor bandage. They keep all that high pressure water from escaping. I spoke to Tricia Stadnick. She's a Canada Research Chair and an engineering professor at the University of Calgary. She was able to tell me a little bit more about this design.
We've seen the diagrams from the city. There's a steel tube in the middle that basically is what the water comes into contact with, so that's nice and clean. And then there's pre-stressed wires that wrap around it, and that's to increase the tensile strength. And then there's a concrete and a mortar coating on that pipe. And all of that is designed to prevent any kind of seepage of rainwater, soil water, that kind of thing from leaching down and eroding or corroding those wires. We don't want that to happen, and we certainly don't want to depressurize the pipe. These pipes, particularly the feeder pipe that this happened in, are under extreme amounts of pressure. And they're designed for that. But unfortunately, if anything gets compromised because they're under a high amount of pressure, the failures are very catastrophic. This is very well known for these types of pipe systems worldwide. And that's one of the risks that we have of any engineered system.
She says sometimes catching those smaller signs of wear and tear before they turn into big problems is tough.
To find that one little crack where the wires are corroded or being compromised, it's really difficult. And the chance of doing that is very small. And you have to shut off the water supply to do any kind of inspections.
Physically inspecting the pipe isn't without risks.
A physical inspection would have required shutdown of the pipe, putting stress on other pipes in the network. Excavation to visually inspect the pipe would increase the risk to the pipe unnecessarily.
Not just the risk to the pipe itself, but the cost to everyone. A physical inspection means digging up the pipe, which is easier said than done. It usually involves a major construction undertaking, which can be inconvenient to both businesses and anyone who lives around this pipe.
The cost isn't just dollars and cents, it's also cost in terms of disruption. If we're doing that proactively to remove sections or inspect sections, which you can't see it until you dig it up, we have to disturb traffic, we have to disturb people, we have to cut off water supply. People don't like that. They get really antsy about that. So we tend to use less invasive methods of pipe inspection in the engineering world, but it's a little bit like looking for a needle in a haystack.
There are methods to monitor these feeder mains without digging them up, but experts told me they aren't as good as that more invasive inspection. So the one where you cut off everyone's water and dig up the pipe to take a better look at it. Tricia used the analogy of an X-ray. If there's a clear broken bone, that shows up clear as day. If there's a hairline fracture though, you might not catch that.
And I would liken the pipe inspection process to something like that. It's fuzzy, it's vague, it's got pixels in it. It takes an expert trained eye to assess, and then they have to make a judgment call at some point.
Officials have said this pipe should have a 75 to 100 year service life. It was installed in 1975, so at 49 years old, this pipe is only halfway through its intended life.
Age is absolutely a factor in pipelines. However, just because a pipe is old doesn't mean that it's about to fail. And that's something to keep in mind, is that we do have quite old pipes in the city of Calgary, and in, even older pipes across North America. It doesn't mean that they're ready to fail. Do you spend a few more resources to ensure that they're okay? Does it influence your asset condition assessment and maintenance planning? For sure.
From what experts have seen, the city has been following its maintenance plans. There was some maintenance in spring 2024 to a part of the pipe, and that included replacing air valves and installing acoustic monitoring. They also did some test shutdowns in the winter and spring of 2023, and that was to prep for a full condition assessment at the end of 2024.
Are there things to learn from this? Absolutely. But sometimes you have issues that pop up in the built environment that we all live in, that you can't necessarily predict. And our job as engineers is to ensure that, we protect public health first and foremost. And certainly if there's going to be a failure, that we're able to respond quickly, but also that failure, the impacts of that failure are minimized. I do hope that people understand the complexity that exists with respect to the delivery of water from a water treatment plant to their home.
This water emergency has given the city one opportunity, a chance to really inspect the pipe while it's down for the count, which is why crews are done fixing the original feeder main break and moved on to 5 more hotspots.
These hotspots are not leaks, but rather they are identified structural deficiencies that require immediate repair. There are no indications of leaks at this point, but that may change as we uncover and assess the pipe at each of these 5 hotspot locations. We want to get ahead of and avoid a similar failure to the one that we've currently or just recently experienced.
So there's some progress being made on the repair, and in the meantime, Calgary's mayor has said she's open to collaboration with the private sector. After all, what is Calgary known to be a leader in? The energy sector. And what does oil and gas know about? Pipes. Carrie says this is a complicated fix, one she expects the city to take its time to repair and get right. This pipe, like a lot of our infrastructure, doesn't just run through a field. It's under homes, it's under major streets. It's buried in the ground with other critical infrastructure.
It takes a really long time to do it right, and nobody wants the job to be rushed either. It's a really challenging space to work within, and I think that's why a lot of people are asking a lot of questions, certainly asking some important questions, but it's showcasing just how little we all understand collectively about our infrastructure.